Morning, good morning. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. It's great to have you along using the webcam today. And I am in the midst of a mess. So bear with me. We'll get underway here pretty shortly. But forgive me running around, but I'm really dashing. What a great day. Let's start with that.
Federal Emergency Management Agency will soon begin
Okay.
flood damage here in South Dakota. They'll be looking at flood damage in 30 counties in the southeastern part of the state. What FEMA finds will be used to determine whether or not.
So the U.S. Supreme Court ruling being welcomed by many, and it's got heads exploding all over the place.
Some improvement, but there still may be some trouble ahead. Creighton University's Mid-America Business Conditions Index for June shows slight growth. However,
Jonathan Turley's got a great piece this morning at the New York Post that saying the Supreme Court's Trump immunity ruling is what the Supreme Court is designed for. Unpopular, but constitutionally correct, he says. So.
The United States Supreme Court sided with the Attorney General.
You know,
and some fishermen.
I've got a webcam that I have been sitting on, and over the course of this week, I'm like, I want to start using the webcam again. I want to give you so I'll be shuttling the webcam back and forth between the studio and my office, but it's going to give you a much better look at what's going on. So let me get ready to roll, and we will get underway. What a big day. And if you couldn't tell, from the news, the reaction from the left is more than sufficient to indicate, because they're going nuts. They're going nuts. They got Biden's poor debate performance, now the Supreme Court ruling, all in the span of 4 days, and they don't know what to do. Just absolutely incredible. All right, here we go. I really am not ready. I apologize.
Showers and storms returning tomorrow night into the 4th of July. From the Storm Center at Kettleland TV, I'm Brian Karstens.
The radio station you're listening to now is Callow. Our addresses are AM 1320, FM 105.1, and worldwide at callow.com. The Doctor of Discernment is on the air.
Tell you what, I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to bed.
The Biden administration has a fatal attraction to nutty ideas.
Dispensing a daily dose of common sense, no prescription required.
They love the show.
I don't hate going to work anymore.
Americans love a winner and will not tolerate a loser. Americans play to win all the time.
I don't believe in the no-win scenario.
This is the
Good morning, my friend. The marketplace of ideas is open. It is great to have you along. Good morning. It's a great morning in America. We had the U.S. Supreme Court yesterday with a big ruling saying that really the president has presidential immunity. And they're not giving him blanket immunity for anything he does, but clearly any actions that he takes as president, he's got blanket immunity for all of those. And so this is really going to slow down the prosecutions against Donald Trump that we have seen. Trump welcomed the verdict yesterday. And then immediately, right after the Supreme Court ruling, they went after what happened in Manhattan. And they asked the New York judge who presided over his criminal trial to set aside his conviction and delay his sentencing. Donald Trump's sentencing in the Manhattan trial was supposed to be coming up next week. And so they sent a letter to the judge citing the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling yesterday, asking the judge to delay Trump's sentencing while he weighs the high court's decision and how it could influence the New York case. So almost immediately they had fired that off and sent it off to Judge Juan Merchan. So Trump, following this ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court, said, "This is a big win for our Constitution and democracy. Proud to be an American." he said on True Social shortly after the ruling was announced. So Trump said today's historic decision by the Supreme Court should end all of crooked Joe Biden's witch hunts against me, including the New York hoaxes, the Manhattan scam cooked up by Soros-backed DA Alvin Bragg, racist New York Attorney General Tish James' shameless attack on the amazing business that I have built. And Trump said, capital letters, proud to be an American. So Donald Trump says. Now, also last night, the president addressed the nation, and I managed to catch this last night. It was early enough. Thank you, Mr. President. It was early enough that I was not only early enough for me, but I think early enough for him as well. So the president said, now again, the reaction from the administration, the reaction from the left to yesterday's U.S. Supreme Court ruling is pretty incredible. And you'll see what I mean as we start to detail it. We'll start, of course, with the president. And he said that this Supreme Court ruling now has set a dangerous precedent, he said. And he said, this has undermined the rule of law. Seriously, every time I hear that coming from this president, it just makes me want to laugh. Talking about, I mean, the rule of law is being undermined. Folks who are following events know who's undermining the rule of law, and it's not Donald Trump. So he said this was a terrible disservice to Americans. And I was struck by that. Do you believe that's true? We'll talk about it coming up this morning. Do you believe the Supreme Court ruling yesterday was a horrible disservice to Americans? I thought it was a great service for Americans, and ironically, just days before July 4th, Independence Day. So the president said, in reaction to this nation was founded on the principle that there are no kings in America. Each of us is equal before the law. No one is above the law. Today's decision almost certainly means that there are virtually no limits on what a president may do. Now, you understand that's not true. That's absolutely incorrect. So, but the fear mongering is fierce, my friends. And the president went on, the man who sent that mob to the U.S. Capitol is facing potential criminal conviction for what happened that day. The American people deserve to have an answer in the courts before the upcoming election. Do you agree with any of that? So we'll talk about it. Spend a significant amount of time. This is the big story today. And he said, now because of today's decision, that is highly, highly unlikely. Again, they wanted these, rulings then prior to the election. That's the only way he can beat Donald Trump. Polls show it. His polls have even gotten worse since the debate this past week. So the Biden administration really is, and I said to Katie last night as we were watching this, we were sitting down watching this last evening and trying to hold my tongue. You know what this is designed for? The president's comments last night, I think it's meant to be a distraction from his own troubles, from his own problems, the fact that he couldn't debate, the fact that, did you even notice last night? Did you watch the video last night? The video last night, you watch him and they bronzed him up. Did you notice that? I mean, the other night at the debate 4 days ago, he looked pale and frail, and Now he comes out and like, he looks like a new man on this thing last night. And he read, it was straight off the teleprompter and turned around and walked away. They're shouting questions at him. No, not going to respond to any of it. Because they don't, the last thing they want is to him to now be off the teleprompter and start speaking to the media. So he immediately turns, walks right back through the shuffles off. Just absolutely incredible. And so the president saying that since the court now is not taking action against Donald Trump, the court will not stop Donald Trump. The public has to. This is what the president said last night. He said the American people must decide whether Donald Trump's assault on our democracy on January 6th makes him unfit for office in the highest office in the land. The American people must decide if Trump's embrace of violence. Seriously, I can barely even repeat this to you without wanting to just pull what is remaining of my hair out. And he says it's up to the American people then to decide if Trump's embrace of violence to preserve his power is acceptable. Perhaps most importantly, the American people must decide if they want to trust the presidency to Donald Trump. So those were the highlights, fairly short. I don't know, a couple of minutes long. The president was in front of the cameras. And that's what he said. Now, I want to run down the reaction of many on the left because it's just it's absolutely crazy. Let's go through this. The president's deputy campaign manager saying he is scared as blank, he said, following the ruling. I think Americans are scared and should be scared of what Donald Trump will do because he's been telling us for months. And so I can reassure you that when you do see President Biden out on the trail, he will be talking about the reasons why Americans should be scared of Donald Trump, as he has been for months. And the Supreme Court opinion today just amplified that. So be afraid, be afraid, be very afraid of Donald Trump. What have I said for a long time? You know what the Democrats do? They accuse their opponents of doing what they're doing. Be afraid of Donald Trump. That's not the person you need to be afraid of. Nancy Pelosi also said the Supreme Court now has gone rogue with its decision, violating the foundational American principle that no one is above the law. Not what the Supreme Court said. Not what they said. They said for official acts that he took, he cannot be prosecuted. It's just that simple. It's not that he can go on, just do whatever he wants. I mean, they're just, the absolute hysteria is, I mean, if these weren't more serious times, it would be comical. Pelosi said a seriously dangerous aspect of the ruling is that it's holding that official acts are inadmissible in trials for unofficial acts. Again, what's going to require is that prosecutors can make a case rather than just political prosecutions. You're going to have evidence if you want to put Donald Trump in jail. You're going to have actual evidence in order to be able to, go after him rather than just these political prosecutions. AOC says she's going to file articles of impeachment over this immunity ruling. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says the Supreme Court has become consumed by corruption crisis beyond its control. How do you not laugh at these just over-the-top, insane reactions? Today's ruling represents an assault on American democracy. It's up to Congress to defend our nation from this authoritarian capture. I intend on filing articles of impeachment upon our return. So you've got others that are melting down. Joy Reid went on a rant on MSNBC about Donald Trump. And she said, hey guys, so over the last, several days, there's been a lot of conversation about a certain old person who had a really bad debate last week. Well, today the Supreme Court just made all of that completely irrelevant. No, they did not. No, they did not. This is what, and I think what they would love to make this the issue. Let's not let them do it. Let's keep the issue of the president's age and that just incredibly bad debate performance. Let's keep that out there in the news and in the let's just keep pressing on that this guy does not have the strength to be the president of the United States. And on top of that, let's be hitting them hard on issues, just hammering those issues home. I think it's important. So then Joy Reid talked about the timing of Monday's ruling coinciding with Independence Day coming up on Thursday. And again, it's almost as if it's they've all got these same script writers. The Supreme Court has granted King Trump monarch-like powers. Who do we hear that from? Biden, the president himself, who said that last night. The king. So these are the talking points now on the left. And it's just absolutely crazy. So now Democrats are warning that this immunity decision will let presidents go after their political opponents, which is an absolute laugh because that's what the Democrats have been doing. And what it says is Democrats can't do that anymore. So they're saying, well, now the Republicans are going to be going after their political opponents and all of the things that they have been doing now. They're trying to say Republicans will be doing all these things, trying to blame them. It's absolutely incredible. But what a beautiful ruling. Coined a phrase from Donald Trump. Absolutely beautiful. And again, the reaction there is just priceless. Jonathan Turley is somebody I greatly admire. He's a professor of law at George Washington University, and he's got a column about this at the New York Post this morning. And he talks about this nonsensical stuff coming from the media and the left. Who can tell the difference anymore, by the way, between the Biden administration and the hysteria of Democrats in Congress and the hysteria of people in the media? Who can tell the difference? I surely can't. There is no difference between the two of them. So Turley writes about CNN's Van Jones. Van Jones said it was almost a license to thug in a way. Senator Richard Blumenthal declared, my stomach turns with fear and anger that our democracy can be so endangered by an out-of-control court. He denounced 6 justices as extremely and nakedly partisan hacks, politicians in robes. And then Turley goes on to say Blumenthal has shown greater intestinal fortitude when he threatened the justices that they would either rule as Democrats demanded or face seismic changes to the court. And he says what it boils down to is this, that the Supreme Court did what it's designed to do. the Supreme Court made a decision that may be unpopular, but it's constitutionally correct, says constitutional lawyer Jonathan Turley. It's a great piece at the New York Post if you want to read it in more detail. Other reactions. This is Will Scharf, who has been an attorney for Trump, and he told Newsmax, he said, we really couldn't have expected any better of a ruling out of the U.S. Supreme Court. It really vindicates what our arguments have been all along, which is that a president deserves a broad scope of immunity from prosecution for his official acts while he's in office. Today, that's exactly what the Supreme Court recognized. We're enthused. We're excited to continue litigating all of these cases in courtrooms across America. He said, but for the meantime, I think what the Supreme Court did was deal a serious blow to the campaign of lawfare against President Trump that's been ginned up by President Biden and his political allies. Speaker Mike Johnson also made some comments about this to Newsmax, and he said the ruling is a victory for former President Trump and all future presidents, and another defeat for President Biden's weaponized Department of Justice and Jack Smith. Yeah, the questions are now, will Jack Smith ever be able to bring these cases that he's been trying to especially get off the ground prior to Election Day? Will he ever be able to? He may. It'll be interesting to see what happens, or if these things just fall away. So, also the president out last night. I don't know if you watched it. I did, because it was early last night. It was 6:45, 6:15, 6:45, the president Central Time, that the president made his comments last night in reaction to the Supreme Court ruling. And again, now keep in mind, I think, again, there's a lot of distraction and deflection and, what this ruling is going to mean. And that's what Democrats are doing. Oh, it's terrible. It's awful. It's, the world is burning. Trump now can do anything, is what they're trying to say. And I think in part because they're just trying to deflect attention away from that disastrous debate performance, and that reaction continues, and it continues on legacy media of all places, which is more times than not very friendly to the administration, and makes you wonder as to whether or not the move is afoot that let's get Joe Biden out of office. Just been an absolute disaster. What a 4-day disaster. Seriously. So the president out last night, and if you watch this, the guy's wearing makeup. He's all bronzed up. I mean, he did not look at all like he did. It's like, and then you wonder, I mean, that's just crazy. If getting them all ready to face the cameras, why didn't they do that prior to the debate then? I just don't get it. Fox News has a piece this morning. The Supreme Court ruling, Donald Trump's reaction. He said, brilliantly written and wise, Trump said in a social media post. He called it a big win for our Constitution and for democracy. This was during an interview he did with Fox News. And again, the reaction from the Biden campaign and others has just been over the top hysteria. And that's a huge story this morning. All right, let's take a break here. It's great to have you along. 628. This hour of the Greg Belfrage Show brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
Weekdays at 2, Callow News Talk 1320.
All right, that's our first segment. Coming up, we'll run down stories that are trending this morning. Putting my webcam to work this morning instead of my phone. I think what I'm going to be doing is shuttling this webcam between the studio and my office for those of you who watch the after show each morning. All right, let me see where we're at here. Boom.
But he cannot stop me. I have the tool.
You got to turn this a little. Can I? Just a bit.
Pushing past the limits of this disability.
I know where to find support and where I can be seen.
I hope this gives you a better view of what we're doing. So,
Research, educational resources, supportive community. The Foundation Fighting Blindness is leading the charge in finding treatments and cures for blinding diseases.
okay, I went a bit longer than I thought. I think we're going to go right into Fox News here. In fact, we are.
I want to learn how to cook, but I keep ordering takeout.
Accomplishing goals is hard, but when your goal is to learn,
All right. So, coming up, we'll give you a little broader look at the news stories that are trending this morning. Those of you who follow me on Facebook, curious to know what your reaction is to the Supreme Court decision yesterday. It's a bit of a game changer, I think. I'm going to turn the speakers up a little bit. Hopefully you're going to be able to catch a portion at least of Fox News.
Our clients know Lone Star Transfer is the only company they can trust. We guarantee the release of all liability to your timeshare in writing and in a specific time frame. Call us today to receive a free, no obligation consultation at 833-594-0077 or online at
Fox News. I'm Chris Foster. President Biden says the Supreme Court's decision on presidential immunity is so broad it allows for nearly anything to be called an official act that can't be prosecuted.
No one is above the law, not even the President of the United States. Today's Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity, that fundamentally changed.
South Carolina Senate Republican Tim Scott on Fox.
I can't think of anything more misleading and disgusting than President Biden bringing into politics the Supreme Court of the United States.
The decision will hold up or prevent aspects of former President Trump's prosecution, and he's asking for his criminal hush money conviction in New York to be overturned. Hurricane Beryl is the first Category 5 storm this early in the season. There's destruction across several southern Caribbean islands. Too early to tell if Beryl will hit the U.S. Gulf Coast. America's listening to Fox News.
The biggest trending stories really this week are surrounding the U.S. Supreme Court.
Kello News Time, 6:31. I'm Joe Bowman in the Kello.com News Center. A man is in custody after he allegedly robbed a Sioux Falls bank Monday morning. Police say 34-year-old Abdi Hakim Ahmed Ismail held up a teller at a bank on the 1400 block of East 10th Street around 9:15 a.m. He then fled in a vehicle with an undisclosed amount of cash. Within an hour, police had the man in custody. Ismail is charged with second-degree robbery. Federal Emergency Management Agency will soon begin assessing flood damage here in South Dakota. They'll be looking at flood damage in 30 counties in the southeastern part of the state. What FEMA finds will be used to determine whether or not a presidential disaster declaration can be made. The deadline for local governments and individuals to submit damage claims is July 12th. Our regional manufacturing economy is showing signs of some improvement, but there still may be some trouble ahead. Creighton University's Mid-America Business Conditions Index for June shows slight growth. However, the survey shows nearly half of the manufacturing supply managers in the 9-state region expect a downturn in the economy for the rest of this year. It's a ruling that overturns more than 40 years of dominance by federal bureaucrats in legal disputes. Attorney General Marty Jackley is celebrating the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling handed down just days ago.
The United States Supreme Court sided with the Attorney General and some fishermen and said, we're going to put this on an even playing field. And so that's been a huge win for the states and our citizens.
Jackley says the ruling ends the practice of federal agencies and bureaucrats wielding too much power over states and their citizens. And Swan Lake in Turner County has been reopened. Several lakes in the recent flood area were closed to boating by Governor Nome. Boaters are advised to use caution as there is debris still below the surface of the water. Wall Lake in Minnehaha County and McCook Lake in Union County remain closed. From the Kello.com News Center, I'm Joe Bowman.
The news never stops. Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
Mostly cloudy skies today. Our high at 77. We also have a 30% chance of some scattered showers.
All right, there we go.
West wind at 5 to 15.
Got a few minutes here before we go back on the air.
60. Tomorrow we'll zoom back up to 84 for a high and a west wind at 5 to 15. Showers and thunderstorms becoming likely into the 4th of July. From the Storm Center at Kettleland TV, I'm Brian Karsten.
What was that? Just want to bring up a point here. This is where to go.
Forgive me, I'm going to look at my screen. I'm trying to see. Yeah, setup's pretty good here. Wanted to make sure I'm giving you a decent view of what I'm doing. Yeah, the webcam's the way to go. Far prefer this over using my phone.
Your advanced network now goes farther than ever before. Visit T-Mobile.com/55 today. This is from a Kim Commando Show listener. Our small company was scammed.
Somebody, I don't have a name here, but somebody sent me an email. I'll share this coming up.
That appeared to be from a vendor we do business with. We didn't notice that the sender's email address was altered by just one character, making it the scammer's email. They asked us to wire the money owed to a specific bank account, the scammer's account. We did. The money's gone. What now? The phony invoice scam happens every day.
Okay.
Contact the FBI and be sure to closely inspect every bill sent by email. You want to be sure.
Need a little go juice here.
Always call to verify. Join 500,000 folks who get my free newsletter at getkim.com. Hey friends, Kim here. You know, it seems the older you get, the savvier you become at saving money. I really hate to overspend on things, especially the necessities. But thanks to T-Mobile, I don't have to worry.
Coffee helps me.
Wireless service, so I've got more time and
get going.
On other things. At T-Mobile.
That's my morning kick. Two things I swear by in the morning. $30 a month per line. Coffee and morning kick. Have the morning kick right out of bed. As I get up, I drink quite a little bit of water. My doctors have told me that's incredibly good for you. First thing in the morning to take a lot of cold water. That your body needs that water, especially in the morning. So I just mix that morning kick into my water and boom. Then it's caffeine.
The Kim Commando Show, live Saturday mornings at 9. Kello News Talk 13.
All right. We got a few minutes here yet. And again, I welcome your thoughts on the Supreme Court decision yesterday. Best thing to do is drop me an email. I love getting your emails. My email address is greg.belfrage@kelo.com. greg.belfrage@kelo.com. So as we talk about these issues, if you have thoughts, feel free to email me anytime. I really enjoy getting those. So, but I have to ask folks to send them in a measured way. Don't just. So I've had a few people that will send me their thoughts, kind of train of consciousness, and put your thoughts together, send them to me in a single email. Much better. I appreciate that. Because that email address I give you is actually my work email. So I have all of the other emails, all of the news releases I'm getting, all of the legitimate company stuff that I'm getting, internal, radio station, company business, your emails come in the midst of all of that stuff. So,
and you can get it online. Go to hims.com/joy. Through Hims, you'll get a free
all right,
medical consultation.
we're getting close here. Here we go.
And the process is 100% online. To start your
Temp,
online
I got to get a
go
temp here.
hims.com/joy. That's HIMS.com/JOY.
Hello.com. With entertaining talk and news when it happens. It's the website preferred by 9 out of 10 people who want to know what's going on. And while you're there, download the free Callow app for your phone. Callow, News Talk 1320.
638, cloudy and 67. This hour of the Greg Belfrage Show brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
What's trending now?
Add them on Facebook.
Let the tweeting begin. The hashtag does that. News and views from Belk's News Gallery.
Well, the big story this morning is the Supreme Court decision yesterday. The Supreme Court ruling 6-3 in Donald Trump's favor in the presidential immunity case. And that will make then prosecutions against Trump even more difficult. So Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the majority opinion. And Justice Roberts said that under our constitutional structure of separated powers, the nature of presidential power entitles a former president to absolute immunity from criminal prosecutions for actions within his conclusive and preclusive constitutional authority. And he is entitled to at least presumptive immunity from prosecution for all his official acts. There is no immunity for unofficial acts. So you understand, they're very clearly drawing a line between official acts that you take as president of the United States versus then acts that you commit as a private individual, even though you may happen to be president, right? So very clearly drawing that line between the two. And so it's one of the reasons why you look at the meltdown, coming from people in the media, the legacy media, and the Democrats, it's just really kind of hard to stomach. So the Supreme Court, there have been a number of stories trending involving the U.S. Supreme Court. They also yesterday dismissed challenges to Florida and Texas laws. These are the social media laws that were passed by Florida and Texas. Those laws would have required big tech companies to host third-party communications, but prevent those businesses from blocking or removing users' posts based on political viewpoints. And this was a unanimous ruling by the Supreme Court. They said lower courts didn't properly analyze the First Amendment issues that are at play in this case. And so each case now going back to its respective Circuit Court of Appeals, they vacated those cases and sending them back. Again, that does not mean these cases are dead. It just means the lower courts, they're saying, are going to have to properly analyze the First Amendment issues at the heart of those. The First Lady did a photo shoot for Vogue magazine yesterday. Did you see this? So she was out doing right on the heels of the president's just really, he bombed at that debate the other night. So she shows up and to do a Vogue, on the cover of Vogue and a story in Vogue. And she says, the president is staying in the race. You know, we have been talking about this obviously since that just really dismal debate. But she says, yeah, the president is staying in the race. Now, there are reports that may not be the case. We'll see. We'll see. But that's what she's saying. May not be up to her. And it may not be up to the president. It'll be interesting to watch. I think this next week, perhaps even the next few days, be very, very telling to whether or not Joe Biden is going to be the Democratic nominee. Because I'm still seeing stories about, and you're seeing this in the legacy media, who potential people might be. So I don't put too much stock in it just because the legacy media is talking about it. Other stories trending this morning. A Quiet Place Day One had a pretty incredible global box office debut, broke franchise records, garnered $98.5 million globally. So that film, A Quiet Place Day One, has outperformed expectations, generated over $50 million in its domestic box office debut. And that story is trending this morning. A few sports stories that are trending. Jason Tatum, who helped lead the Boston Celtics to their 18th NBA title last month. Jason Tatum has agreed to a 5-year, $314 million contract extension. That's the largest contract in the NBA's history. Also, Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone set her 5th consecutive world record at the U.S. Olympic track trials. So she made history, breaking her 5th consecutive 400-meter hurdles world record with a time of 50.65 seconds at the U.S. Olympic trials on Sunday. So CNN reported that she's 24 years old. She secured first place, is set to compete in the Olympic Games in Paris later this month. Speaking of that, Simone Biles has returned to the United States women's gymnastics Olympic team. She had withdrawn from competition at the 2021 Japan Olympic Games. So she leads the team as the oldest American woman to make an Olympic gymnastics team since the 1950s. She's 27 years old. Also, the Republican-led House Judiciary Committee has filed a lawsuit against Attorney General Merrick Garland yesterday. They're demanding that a court ordered the Justice Department to release the audio recording of Special Counsel Robert Hur's interview with President Joe Biden. You know, you and I have talked about that as to whether or not the audio should be released, should Americans be able to hear it, be able to decide. So this lawsuit then demands that the DOJ provide recordings of the interview that Hur conducted also with Biden's ghostwriter. This is the Mark Zwanitzer. And so the next step in that process will be for the Justice Department to file a response to the lawsuit. Other stories trending this morning. The jury in the Karen Reed murder trial said for a third time they can't reach a verdict. So the judge declared a mistrial. Jury foreman said, despite our rigorous efforts, we continue to find ourselves at an impasse. Said our perspectives on the evidence are starkly divided. Some members of the jury firmly believe that the evidence surpasses the burden of proof. He said others find the evidence fails to meet this standard. And so the judge accepted their reasoning and said, I'm not going to, whether or not the judge would send them back in, continue to deliberate. The judge said, I'm not going to do that to you folks. Your service is complete. I'm declaring a mistrial, the judge said. The 12-year-old girl from Texas, whose body was found in a creek in North Houston, now we're learning she was also sexually assaulted. The results from the Houston Forensic Science Center confirmed this yesterday. And so there are two men, as you may know, who have been arrested and are charged with capital murder in her death. They're both in the country illegally. Also, there's a story that's trending this morning. This is from Business Insider. Families of the victims of the two fatal Boeing 737 MAX crashes are denouncing a plea deal that the Justice Department is offering to Boeing. So federal prosecutors have given Boeing until the end of the week to accept the deal. And the families of some of these victims are not happy about it. One of the attorneys for this, he's an attorney for 15 of the victims' families, said this is another sweetheart plea deal to which the families vehemently object. And he said the DOJ has not made the details public yet, but it includes a small fine, a 3-year term of probation, and a corporate monitor, but no recognition of the 346 deaths. Steve Bannon reported to prison yesterday. He had appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, and he was denied. So it was an emergency appeal addressed to Chief Justice John Roberts, and the court denied it. So Bannon reporting to prison, I think to jail yesterday. 4 months, I think, Steve Bannon is facing. And pretty incredible. Steve Bannon was out the other day prior to this, and he was, he's had some very successful, highly watched podcasts, and Bannon is saying, won't shut me up. I mean, I'll continue to speak even from prison, Bannon said the other day. The Supreme Court also yesterday, in a much different vein, revived a lawsuit by a North Dakota truck stop. They were trying to block the fees that banks can charge for debit card transactions. And this was a 6-3 decision by the U.S. Supreme Court. It makes it easier for businesses to challenge federal regulations. And this case concerned whether the store was too late to bring a lawsuit challenging the Federal Reserve regulation that governs how much businesses pay to banks when customers use debit cards to make purchases. And so the broader scope of the case, they say, was to question whether litigants who are suffering from a legal wrong due to an agency action are entitled to judicial review. And they are. So all of the Democrats on the court, Democrat appointed justices, Elena Kagan, Sonia Sotomayor, and Ketanji Brown Jackson all dissented. So we're seeing that 6-3 division in the U.S. Supreme Court here in a number of different ways, not just in the immunity case involving Donald Trump. Other stories trending this morning. Family of 5 from Georgia has died in a small plane crash in upstate New York. This is after they left a baseball tournament in Cooperstown, police said. A sad story. So this family of 5 has been identified. They were killed Sunday afternoon, according to New York State Police. And they said all of the passengers are family members from the state of Georgia and were in Cooperstown for a baseball tournament. And Georgia Governor Brian Kemp yesterday called the incident tragic, and he asked the public to join him and his family in praying for the loved ones of these families who were killed. I have shared these stories with you over the course of the last few days, but they're still trending. Walgreens planning to close a large share of its U.S. stores over the next 3 years. That's coming from the CEO of Walgreens. And he, this talking about company's earnings, and he was saying that a quarter of the company's 8,500 stores are underperforming. And as a result, then, Walgreens will close a significant portion of those locations. And I have not seen any stories yet as to what the exact locations may be. But Walgreens is having some difficult financial times. Also, Representative Jamie Raskin was on MSNBC, and he was talking about the president's future. We talked about that at length during the show yesterday. And Jamie Raskin said, the conversations that are ongoing, he said, this is what a real political party looks like, and this is what a real political party does. Obviously, there was a big problem with Joe Biden's debate performance, and there is also just a tremendous reservoir of love for Joe Biden in our party. So this makes it a difficult situation for everybody, but there are very honest and serious and rigorous conversations happening. Oh, I bet there are. I bet there are happening at every level of our party, he said, because it's a political party and we have differences in point of view. One of the few times you hear me agreeing with Jamie Raskin. But he said, one thing I can tell you is regardless of what President Biden decides, our party is going to be unified. And our party also needs him at the very center of our deliberations and our campaign. And so whether he's the candidate or someone else is the candidate, he's going to be the keynote speaker at our convention. He will be the figure that we rally around to move forward and beat the forces of authoritarianism and reaction in this country. So that story is still trending this morning. And then finally, 4th of July is bringing heat for a number of portions of the country, and particularly down south. So highs are expected to be in the triple digits then through the 4th of July and beyond. And forecasters say that this will make some places like New Orleans feel close to 120 degrees. Yikes! And that's a look at the stories trending this morning in Belf's News Gallery. It's great to have you along this morning. 6:57, cloudy and 67. And this hour of the Greg Belfrage Show brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
To the world, outer space, and beyond.
Well, thank you so much, my friend, for letting me join you this morning. I especially appreciate it. I will see you for the after show coming up this morning at 9:30. So I hope you can join me then. here on YouTube, and I very much appreciate it. Take care. So, and let me know if you like the use of the webcam versus my phone. I think it's much better image. So, thank you. Appreciate it. Take care, my friends. So long until tomorrow, and may God bless.
Memory this summer at the Birdcage. Tickets.sfcanaries.com.
Hey, are you feeling the impact of the recent changes in the timeshare industry?